Nicole Fletcher, representing Cal State Dominguez Hills University, Department of Health Sciences. How are you? It's nice to look at your faces today. Hello. Today my study will be looking at the association between weight, physical attractiveness, and mental health amongst adolescents. So a little bit of an overview of the study. I'm going to be looking at the association amongst physical attractiveness, BMI, self-esteem, and depressive feelings amongst a sample of Italian adolescents aged 15 to 19. So why do the study? Why look into this stuff? Well, the Italian culture has had a long-standing preoccupation with physical attractiveness and body shape, and Italy is quickly becoming one of these nations where their BMI scores for their adolescent or for their youth is on the rise. This study is attempting to understand how such rises in these BMI scores is affecting their perception of physical attractiveness and how it's related to mental health indicators. So I wanted to do this study to look at how adolescents view their physical attributes and how that is associated to their mental health. Studying connections between physical attractiveness and these variables can help us to modify future health promotion programs. Some of the results we found while doing this research was that female adolescents with a higher BMI tend to have a low perception of physical attractiveness. That fact alone can help us to modify our future health promotion programs to include self-efficacy efforts and self-esteem efforts to increase their sense of personal satisfaction with themselves. Some of the aims I wanted to do for this study were to look at the perception of physical attractiveness and body shape because it has had long-standing issues with self-esteem and depressive feelings. This investigation is aimed to better understand gender differences that exist amongst these Italian adolescents in this sample. So in this study, I wanted to look at the following variables: BMI, depressive feelings, perception of physical attractiveness, and self-esteem. So, from an adolescent point of view, adolescents tend to pay an increasing amount of attention to how they look and what their body features look like and what they perceive as important and how others think of them and how others view them. This is important because they begin to form these ideal stereotypes as to what's idealistic and what should be, or what should I look like, or what I should be looking like. And they form these definite stereotypes of what's typical or ideal. These stereotypes are important in that when looking at the stereotypes, adolescents tend to compare themselves to these stereotypes. And when they don't look like what is perceived to be ideal or normal, they feel themselves to be a deviation from that. That deviation is important because we have found that in regards to physical attractiveness, whether rated by yourself or rated by others, it has found that it has been consistently positively related to self-esteem when your physical attractiveness does not match up to what is considered normal. In a matriculation point of view, as early as preschool and elementary school years, children are rated by their peers and given a higher status when they are better looking. This higher status given by peers will follow adolescents into their childhood, into their adolescent years, and throughout their college years. Physically speaking, a major developmental challenge during the adolescent transition involves adaptation to physical transformations of puberty. When teenagers begin to come to terms with their own body and they start to evolve in their social changes and stresses, they also begin to deal with their changing weight, their changing height, their secondary sex characteristics, and their reproductive maturity. Furthermore, the higher a BMI score, rather the heavier a person is relative to his or her height, the more likely they are to feel that they are too heavy. When normal weight gain is amplified by the growth due to puberty and bodily changes shift girls away from stereotyped images, their efforts to mirror these images will lead them to decrease self-esteem and lead to depressive moods. Additionally, several large-scale studies have shown that many adolescent girls perceive themselves to be overweight, even when their actual weight is appropriate to their height. It is reported that 70% of normal weight adolescent girls feel fat and engage in unhealthy behaviors to lose weight. In fact, concern with physical attractiveness has been reported to be the most worrisome problem in a sample of adolescent students. So from a psychological point of view, in the middle-class world of Anglo society, there is a cultural shift towards a thinness as a desirable body type. And it places adolescent girls at a risk of feeling too big and too fat. This developmental course may lead to depressive feelings, somatic complaints, and lower self-esteem. This information is important because how you feel about yourself is an essential part of you maturing in a healthy manner. And any dissatisfaction you may have with yourself can lead to depressive feelings, social anxiety, and lower self-esteem. So on the basis of the literature I just reviewed, I wanted to do a bivariate correlation between BMI, physical attractiveness, self-esteem, and depressive feelings. My sample consisted of 302 Italian youth, ages 15 to 20, who all resided in the northwest region of Italy. They all came from a diverse type of secondary school, one vocational school, one general high school, and 2 technical high schools. These measures were derived from the Italian version of the Health Behavior Questionnaire. The scale and composite measures of the questionnaire were all theoretically derived from Jesser's problem behavior theory, and the validity of the scales has been established amongst multiple studies and amongst multiple populations. So I wanted to analyze my data and do a bivariate correlation between BMI, physical attractiveness, self-esteem, and depressive feelings. And these are my results. Now, it looks really charty, but I'm going to explain how cool it is in a second. Just get excited for you. So this is the results for my males, and if we read it from right to left, you look here for self-esteem. Males that scored high for self-esteem also scored high for perception of physical attractiveness. Males that scored high for depressive feelings scored low for self-esteem and low for perception of physical attractiveness. Now on to my female results. Reading from right to left, females that scored high for BMI scored low for self-esteem and low for perception of physical attractiveness. Females that scored high for self-esteem scored high for perception of physical attractiveness and low for depressive feelings. Females that scored high for perception of physical attractiveness scored low for depressive feelings. Now, I don't think any of you caught it, but something magical just happened, and I'm going to explain that in a second. There was no data found to correlate BMI with males. There was only a BMI association with females. So you might be thinking, why are females so hung up on BMI? I believe in this culture that men who have a higher BMI, it's more socially accepted. And for females who have a higher BMI, it's more socially disregarded or disliked. There's this dissatisfaction with a higher BMI if you're a female. So in the results, both associations with high self-esteem, both sexes, both male and females that scored high for self-esteem also scored high for perception of physical attractiveness. Yet again, to remind you, there was no association with BMI in male. And there was also, for both sexes, an association with, if there was a high score for physical attractiveness, there was also a low score for depressive feelings. So just to iterate, these results show a clear gender difference on the mental health effects of BMI scores. With females, there seems to be a much greater preoccupation with weight And it has a noticeable effects on self-esteem and perception of physical attractiveness. These results show that there needs to be a better understanding of the causes of these associations to best develop prevention efforts aimed at bettering mental health objectives in regards to weight-related concerns. So this study had a few limitations to it, and some of the limitations were that these were self-reports, and because they were self-reports, they're considered to be subjective in nature and therefore not really proper for an objective analyst. Also, male and female adolescents have different views as to what is perceived as physically attractive, so what may be attractive to one may be unattractive to another. Some of the future directions I would like to take this study would be to look at social acceptance with peers, educational achievement, and external stresses from environment or surroundings in correlation with perception of physical attractiveness. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you think if you performed the study in the United States would be different than what got included?
I do. I think if we did the study in the United States, that we would definitely find a correlation with BMI in male. Because I think in the United States, there's a heavier importance for males to be more athletic or to have a lower BMI because there's a bigger pressure for it, especially in high school and when you hit that puberty age where you're supposed to be a certain height and weight and very masculine. So I think we would definitely find some type of score with BMI with males in the United States. Yes, ma'am.
And do you think there'll still be a correlation of BMI with females and like if the males look at the females and like rate them with their BMI and like how they look attractive, I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
No, I'm trying to catch you right in the middle. I'm trying to I'm trying to get it. Okay. Are you asking, do you think that there would be a similar correlation with females as far as BMI because men were rating them, or?
Yeah, compared to what the females are themselves do.
Well, I think females are really, really harsh. And we are most harsh on ourselves. No matter what people perceive us to look like or what we think other people's opinions of us are, no matter the worst opinion of somebody else, I think females, we're worse on ourselves. So I think if females are rating ourselves based off of physical attraction in correlation with BMI, the results would be much harsh. But I think for males, I guess it would depend on what their tradition or what their idealistic views are of what is physically attractive. So depending on the male, whether he prefers a more robust woman or a more just thin-shaped or thin-body-shaped female would be, I guess, the deciding factor as to what the results would look like. Yes, sir?
In comparison to like this acceptance or like how men in America are less accepting of like a higher BMI, was there anything that you found culturally in Italy that allows for men to be accepted for having a higher BMI over them?
There was nothing we found. There was nothing I found in particular for Italians as to why it's more acceptable, I guess, to have a higher BMI. I just think as far as the cultural difference, there's not that much of an importance placed on it from, I guess, a male perspective. I think that's not something they worry about. But it is something I'm going to write it down. It's something I would like to look into as far as my future studies because I think it would make for really great results.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Yes, sir?
Do you think your results will be different along geographical divide, like north to south, east to west?
Possibly, because even though even though Italy as a whole has their cultural norms, depending on the geographic area, different norms work for different areas. So it could be a possible difference. I like that. I'm going to write that down. Thank you. Helping me out in my future studies, you guys. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Well, again, just thinking of future studies for this, I wonder what they would think if they actually knew what their actual BMI was. I mean, was that calculated and then they responded, or were they just looking at the chart of BMI ranges and saying it doesn't make any difference? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying. So I believe it was a questionnaire as to what it
Here's
is
the
that,
ranges.
this is the range, yes or no, type of,
Mm-hmm.
check the box that is according to you, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
But it is a good, yet again, right, it is a good correlation to see because some people, what they perceive as to, I guess, what is overweight versus what your actual BMI is according to the scale that they give you, is actually, it differs. So,
Yeah, maybe if they knew what their BMI was and they realized, oh, I am overweight, therefore I belong in this category. Now it means something versus, I'm just hypothetically looking at something and go, that doesn't matter to me. But going back to the Italians' kind of mindset of the physical appearance and being that's important, and I don't know if we can correlate that with our views of what, I don't even know the name of the show, the New Jersey show that...
Jersey Housewives?
No, the one with the kids.
Jersey Shore.
Okay. Where all those males seem to be very muscular, so just based on that, they're going to have high BMIs.
Yes.
So maybe that's their impression of what a BMI is that the more muscular I am, the higher my BMI is going to be, therefore it says obesity but doesn't really mean obesity.
Right.
So, I think all that can play into how they perceive it versus somebody in the United States or, from a different country.
Yeah, I can see how you definitely make that correlation. Because as far as the United States is concerned, we view BMI from the chart that's given, that one chart that scares every woman alive.
Right, exactly.
So our BMI is a definite, you are either in the red or you are in the green.
Right.
So it could be a different correlation as to how they view BMI. Definitely. Definitely. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am?
Did you, is there a way you could break it up, and, actually, did you, if they're in a certain range of BMI, and then, also compare, where it fluctuate, or where it's, okay, hold on, let me think about it.
Okay. Does anybody else want to ask? Yes, ma'am?
For future studies, would you ever think about comparing Italians from actual Europe and then immigrants, our second generation Italians, and see if their views of BMI changed?
Yeah,
culturally?
Definitely. I think it's assimilation. You come in, you've adopted, somebody just said that, Miss Ashley. You come in and you've adopted this new country, you're eating the food, definitely the McDonald's in Italy has got to be healthier than the McDonald's in America. So it's a whole new ball game. So definitely, looking at, oh my gosh, write it down. You guys are amazing, thank you, just helping me out. Future studies, definitely. The diet, the cultural change, trying to fit in here versus trying to be yourself in actual Italy, that's definitely something that we can look at. Anyone else? Did you work on your question, or?
Have fun.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for your time.